that in some way content providers and networking or telcos have to get to an agreement to ultimately provide good content to customers.
One of the significant device or model I've seen lately is the Amazon Kindle Fire HD, which is they are selling it along with telcos. So telcos, they make some money out of it. But the most important in this device that it comes with content. So it's really somehow closing the door for operators like even Integral or anyone else, where you buy the device and then simply you have access to those millions of movies and books and music. What do you think the future of such devices, and how do you feel this competing with you even here in Middle East when Kindle will shift to Middle East?
I think that Kindle is only one of the competitors that we're going to face as operators in the region. You know, we have the Apple TVs and the other kind of type of OTT solutions that are coming to the region or are already operating here. I think at the end it's one element that today is not compelling in those devices is the Arab content and the local content, and in that sense we feel at Integral that we are very strong. We're very strong liaising with very small studios and producers and really guaranteeing that we have that component that, you know, an imported value proposition does not have at this point.
Actually, talking about Arab, I was last week in San Francisco in our headquarters, and we invited to an internal meeting a VP from Amazon to talk about Kindle Fire because it has some Dolby technologies, and the guy, he said, this is how exactly he put it together, that our plan within the next 10 years, we need to have every movie on earth, every book and every piece of music available from our device. This will be a real threat, even a real threat to people who provide technologies for other things, because it will be somehow limited. What do you think, guys? Is it a successful model? Could be a device coming with content and then that's it?
Well, it's not so much a device, it's giving content owners another route to market. It's exactly the same as Integral or OSN, it just happens to be Amazon behind it.
Yeah.
I think the great thing we're going to be seeing over the next decade or so is content owners delivering directly to the customer. We'll start seeing these middlemen drift out. There's no real need to have regional controls on media anymore. Okay. That needed to be there because of satellite footprints and everything else. As a content owner, and as we always say in these things, content is king. I would love to cut out the middleman and just get my money directly from the customer. And I'm pretty sure Fox, Universal, BBC, and everything else would love to do the same. And if you can do that over IP worldwide, fantastic.
Interesting. So we talked about devices, standards, technical, now cost, all these things together. Now let's think, what do you think, guys, the most successful business model from a technology perspective, a platform, a delivery, device, whatever, and then from user experience? What could be the next successful business model? Since, device we agreed and we disagreed, but what could be? Do you have any idea?
Using the content multiple ways, right? So you're creating a piece of content today, you're linearly distributing it, that's one facet. Being able to package it up for catch-up, I think, is an interesting way. Owning it, renting it, continue to fuel some of those models. You now have one piece of content that you are multiplying the means in which you can monetize. I think that trend needs to be more adopted here, to see more of that, especially from content originating from this region.
Okay. Marco, is that, Simon?
Yeah, one thing in this regard, I mean, when you talk about business models, the cost element is very important, and so far we've touched on the end user devices, end user standards. But I think if you're going back further into the production chain, the standards for reducing the number of formats of files, of automating, integrating, whether it's like the efforts of standardizing and delivery formats with DPP production, or whether it's the service-oriented architecture of films to allow building blocks to be put together in a standard way. Simplifying and eliminating much of the operating cost will be as key as it will be generating new revenue streams.
We know that Newtek are involved in many of those simplifying formats. Can you tell us a little bit about what could be the next generation format or which is we have it now and we don't know that it's going to be the unified format? What do you think?
there are so many pieces in the chain that need to be right. There is, efficiency increases on satellite, on terrestrial. Of course, those are necessary.
Yeah.
IP, but and the more and more use of standardized hardware. But I think in the ingest production chain, getting it to distribution, certainly some of these key things on standardization of making broadcasters that are essentially doing the same thing to start using the same
profiles,
building blocks, to get the economies of scale to simplify operations. That's something I think that is really key for the future viability.
Interesting. Paul, you worked on a hybrid project long time back. What's the difference between when you worked on that project, on the hybrid delivery, and then nowadays? What was the difficulties that you don't see it anymore? And if you're doing it right now, what you will do?
Sure, I think the difficulties haven't really changed, right? So we've all really discussed so many different ways to deliver content to end users and all the spins we can put on it and all these great things we can deliver to the end user. At the end of the day, it comes about managing the cost and delivering those features, right? So the challenge is still cost. How do we effectively manage that cost to deliver a solution to the end user? And there's very creative ways now that these are being accomplished. One of the ways that we've looked at it internally is sort of serving it at the edge or going to the local telcos in the region and multicasting within their network, so we're only aggregating the content to a certain point. That dramatically manages cost instead of pulling a unicast stream from each individual connection. So at the end of the day, I could sit here and talk for 20 minutes about features and things that have changed, but it's still managing costs. We all have to manage our costs to be successful.
Okay.
The hybrid box that ART built 3-4 years ago, with the exception of one technical decision in there, every decision was made on the basis of cutting costs, controlling costs. The one decision that we didn't have control was a legacy issue, which was done by the satellite. But every other decision, the DRMs, the middleware, the browsers, etc., were all defined in the end by the cost of running a service.
I think some of the cost element can come down in terms of workflow and simplifying that workflow or building some cost efficiencies around it, mimicking what you have in an analog world today and doing that digitally. And there's a number of providers that do something like that, from acquisition to archiving. And it is an ecosystem, right? There's very few providers that can do it fully end to end. But when you start mimicking that and start replicating that same workflow on your analog onto digital, then you'll get some of those cost savings as well.
Okay.
And there is another side of the equation that actually, like when you move into the content cost, what we have seen in the recent years is like the content cost is increasingly like going up and going up every year. And as the content become more premium, people are fighting to get in this content, in particular in this region, and then become much more expensive for us and then for the end user at the end. So what we would like to see in the future is like some kind of like a consolidation at the time of acquiring certain content, so we can reduce those minimum guarantees and we can transfer that to the end user at the end.
But do you think content owners will be fine with such idea, or they want to have as much as they can more client and share profit?
Well, there is certain limit, because if you increase the price on the content acquisition, that price needs to be transferred in some way to the end user. When you transfer that price, immediately you're cutting the possible take-up that you can have on that. Like it's becoming too expensive for certain content to be acquired and to be consumed by maybe like low to mid income like end users.
Okay. Interesting. So just to wrap up before we give you the microphone so you can ask me questions, it seems that all of us, we agree that cost is a main fact in selecting technology or any platform. Device is a main player. What can I deliver to each device? Standard is very important, but as Simon said, it looks at HBBTV and Dash as a streaming protocol are winning the scene. And user experience and delivering a specific content to specific demographic portion of population on a specific device, most probably as well, it's the most successful one. But I will leave it now for you to ask your questions, please.
I would have loved to see someone from the content production side on the panel up there, but unfortunately there wasn't any. So my question was
on behalf of them.
Yeah. Well, my question was, we're talking about multi-platform delivery, and my idea was for actually transmedia storytelling, because ultimately all content is stories. It's how the end user consumes that is what's going to drive you guys delivering it on certain platforms. So are y'all actually looking at opening up a gateway for ideas, for content people to come in and talk to you all? Are you listening? For example, for me, it makes sense to probably think of Dolby Surround, playing back from a stream on your headset, a simulated Dolby Surround on your iPhone while you're watching your TV, as an idea. Or for example, in a James Bond movie, you have your iPhone with the vibration turned on, and you could actually have a camera angle in there showing you the drive-through from the windscreen. That's what transmedia storytelling would mean. Across the device, giving a different value add, rather than simply streaming the linear content from the TV directly onto a smaller device. So, ideas like that, of course, the ideal thing is offering different voiceovers. So my question is, any of the hardware manufacturers or the TV stations actually open up to talking to content people and doing something locally out here in this regard?
I think, yes. I think all of them, they are talking. I mean, there is movies and sports, which is really a big portion of what consumed on those services. Everything else, yes, people are talking. Even Hollywood studios are talking to devices. And I think in the next Samsung device, there will be something similar to what you're talking about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi. Not to reduce the importance of the cost issue in what we were discussing, how does the panelists think about targeted advertising as a way to monetize this sort of ventures? I mean, here you have a golden opportunity where the user, where he is, what he's watching.
Yeah.
So how about targeted advertising for that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, what more to say?
That's what Alex tapped on.
I was going to say, just to jump in on that, so yeah, we left it a little bit on the cost side, and that is important. I don't know if I'm a diehard optimist, but like, if we're going to grow a business, optimizing cost is not the way to really grow it, right? And if you're in a growth market like we saw earlier, more channels than ever before, more devices than people. You have more content coming out. This is every indicator showing online penetration increasing, every indicator showing growth. So I think it's about embracing how to do that properly with in mind what your cost scales are, right? How long is that? That is a 24, 36-month period. But what a great industry to be in. I don't know, 10 years ago, if you looked at this, if you'd think that it would grow as quickly as it would without a lot of these indicators.
But we're talking about.
I was going to say, just to come back, obviously, the targeted advertising would be fantastic. Obviously, and we obviously mentioned it earlier, one of the advantages of having this second screen, this social media interaction and everything else, is it allows us to describe our demographic properly as well. The people metering is in a very early stage over here. It's pretty much phone calls and finding out what people are watching. So it helps us leverage, not just focused advertising for people, but it allows us to know exactly what our demographics are as well.
But we're talking about the cost. We have also to there's a big threat here coming from those small individual or investors, something like we've seen on iPhone, on Angry Bird, a couple of people did a successful game. Because on Smart TV now, the platform is open for anyone to put his app. On Xbox and other game consoles, the same thing. On the new, on any tablet. So most probably someone sitting at his home, he can find a good piece of content, or he gather from someone, or he produce, and then he will be successful. And even, by the way, Hollywood studios, they are not really limiting their distribution to the big players, because all what they revenue share. And we've seen a new service now coming in Lebanon, Anghami. It's a music service. He has most of the big labels around the globe on revenue share model. He never paid them any single dollar, and he's gonna be successful. He was offered a couple of $1 million before he launched his app from Spotify. So it's and there are two individuals in Lebanon. That's it. Dr. Riyad, you had a question.
Yes, maybe I hope I had the last question before lunch.
Okay.
Just